Hey there guys, Kuri Rinji here, once again bringing you the worst out of the VTuber community. And today we have a special one. Don't you guys just love that everything in the VTuber community intersects with one another? There's webs and upon webs of connections that all tie onto each other, and they all create this whole massive deranged whole. And today's topic is about something like that in particular. The subject of today's video, Momoka VTuber, or rather I should say failed VTuber turned VTweeter activist, is a tale of maybe getting a bit too upset about somebody's words, possibly not being able to handle one's own community, and maybe a bit of personal issues that got in the way of creating content for the hobby that relies on creating video content and streaming content. But let's get right into it. Have to say, it's really sad that the way that people devolve to insulting someone, using the word VTweeter as if it's some moral high ground. You're not a real VTuber, so you don't get an opinion. Well, first of all, fucking twat. There's more places to make content than Twitch. Second, sure, I may not be streaming on Twitch, but I'm still have a bigger platform than your ass, so I clearly am doing something right. Whereas all you're doing is following your favorite Oshi, the idea that someone can be as inane as to simply boil down everything to streaming. Or not so fucking whack when it's coming from people who do not stream. You don't have any ground to stand on. Well, you know, Momoka, the people that usually criticize others for being VTweeters and use it as an insult, is this specifically for that type of Twitter user that claims to be a VTuber but doesn't actually create any sort of video content or any kind of thing that would be in line with the hobby, but you know. And let's not forget that the people that are criticizing for you for that aren't labeling themselves as VTubers, whereas you are. They have more right to call you that without being streamers themselves. It's simply not a needed quality for them. But for you, as someone that thinks of themselves as a VTuber, I think you'd probably have to do these things in order to be considered one. But what do I know? I'm not a VTuber myself. I'm just a PNG that bounces up and down and lights up here and there when I speak. So what would I know about VTubers? It's such a meaningless phrase, like, oh, you think you're something, but here you are, tweeting on Twitter. Almost like it elects the site's fucking purpose, LMAO. LMAO, yeah, basically, it's just such a pedantic effort to have some weird moral superiority that doesn't exist. And lo and behold, they're swapped from VTweeter to just outright saying slurs in a matter of seconds. LMAO. So true, because all they really want is to be aggressive. Well, when we're talking about aggressiveness, you'll see some aggression coming from Momoka in a second. It's always random nobodies too who you could just insult by calling tweeters. It could mean like the same thing, lol. Well, no, specifically VTweeters. It's an insult aimed at VTubers that just spend their whole fucking days on Twitter, tweeting incessantly about matters that nobody really cares about but them. Yeah, for real, it's such a wild take. It's funny how the people who copy the line and call people VTweeters don't seem to have created much and are just tweeting instead. And true, there's way more content places than just Twitch or YouTube, but for some people, is it real if it's there for some reason? Small aside, I feel like VTubing is more than identity, but about self-expression rather than something that's only reducible down to content you output for others to consume. It's really framed in such an entrepreneurial language by others. Well, Anemoyan Arts, I'd like to tell you something. This particular industry was created in order to entertain people. YouTubers go onto YouTube and create content in order to entertain others. Expressing self, sure, is a part of it, but entertainment is at the crux of the whole thing. You can't just say that you're expressing yourself as a VTuber as if it's some higher art form or anything like that. You're supposed to be creating content for others to enjoy. And the tube part, which will be referring, to YouTube, and further on to creating video content, is a crucial and necessary part of it. But it is what it is. They call people VTweeter as they're streaming. They've lost that meaning of the word. It's not just someone they don't agree with. Well, I've seen it personally used this way, but more than not, it's used by people to insult VTubers that don't actually create content. And, here's the aggression part that I was talking about. Momoka VTuber going after Pippa with the whole Hogwarts Legacy thing, as I have already covered in another video. You can watch that on my channel if you so will. It's really entertaining, and people are really reaching hard in order to paint her in the worst light possible, which will never succeed because people doesn't give a damn. What the fuck, dude? This is pathetic and hard pandering to right-wing hate mentality, and it's sickening. Just for this one particular tweet alone, for hating people on Twitter, the kind of people that are referred to in that tweet are people like you, Momoka, because you get insulted. You make wild claims and assumptions about someone that you don't even know the first thing about, and you're gonna call them right wing as if it's an insult and sickening at the same time. Let's all agree that people play their game and it's no longer our concern. Here's the cookie. Let's walk away from it. When she's going out of her way to basically say, "I'm doing this because I like to be transphobic," yeah, it's pretty bad. Can you please red line or red silk where she basically says, "Unless you are just broad stroking," then kinda cringe, dude. Yeah, I'd say it's a very huge reach. People specifically referred to people like you that make these sort of insulting comments about people without any sort of evidence, just to, get that Twitter clout, because that Twitter clout is supposedly builds your platform. You're building a platform based on hate. I hope you like that kind of clout, because that's what you get if you're gonna be hateful on the internet. Here's also something very special. It's really sad how unsurprising it is that so many people are sending death threats and encouraging suicide because of Pikami thing. I don't know how to explain that. We as a community are not responsible for the actions of some few people in that community. If you think that we are, that's like saying all white people are responsible for the actions of white cops that murder people every day. It's overwhelmingly sad that how many people think this is some kind of war, when it's literally just basic human respect that we are asking for. I'm so tired of mindset that this is the fault of the community at large, and we are somehow supposed to be able to punish the bad actors in our community. Even if somehow we are able to do that, it wouldn't be enough, because all you care about is hate. The same hate you're trying to direct towards those people, the same actions that you are guilty of, you hypocrite. But Momoka being like that is not surprising at all. Momoka does have a history of being a VTuber, but the failed VTuber part is something that you have to consider as well, as the last time Momoka did anything on her own in order to further her own brand is about 2 years ago. And there's a particular song that kind of encapsulates what Momoka is doing right now. And it's a little song, but the little known VTuber you guys may know as Morika Liopi, that whole life rapper VTuber that you might know her from somewhere. Her song "Off with Their Heads" explains this kind of mindset that Momoka is exhibiting pretty well. So let's give it a short listen. It's the song. Momoka had also something in particular to say about that song in an interview. So in an interview that she had about 2 years ago with a VTuber at that time, at least, interviewer called John Loves Anime. So let's have a listen to that one as well.
I actually haven't heard Maury's new song.
But
I heard about the controversy, but I didn't listen to the song yet.
It ain't no controversy. That's the thing about it. It's just people being salty of some words and lyrics. Like, here's the thing about this. Here's the big thing about this. It's like, let me put in an example. Let's just put it like in terms of rapping and so forth, or hip hop. Let's just say the NWA. Many people got salty of the words of the NWA lyrics of words, but they were truths and so forth. It's the same basic principles. The NWA was was spitting rhymes about police police brutality and even disqualities in terms of the ghetto, same as Tupac. Those people have those words and lyrics that are very meaningful, and they actually have heart into it, same as Morty Canalope's new song. It's not a diss track. It's just basically she's just saying is you know what don't just stand there and just sit down and be tweeting. If you want to do something, make some content. Instead of just complaining, just make content. You know what I mean? It's something along the lines of that.
That's fair. But I think it kind of ignores the fact that for people who are starting out and they don't get the backing of fluffing Hololive, Twitter is content. But I do think that ultimately, yeah, sure, it's a song. It doesn't matter. But I don't think she has a right to say that people posting on Twitter is not making content, and if you're complaining about something, then stop being on Twitter or whatever. I don't think she has a right to say that, because
I think she has all the right to say that, and her being backed by Hololive is just a reward for already getting selected by them in the process of recruitment. You don't just get to be a Hololive VTuber without putting some work as your other personality, as the real you, or maybe as a different kind of content creator, because Hololive people are hired specifically for their abilities and talents. The backing that they get once they actually become Hololive VTubers is just a reward for sometimes a lifetime spent of creating content that is of a particular high quality. That's why they get hired in the first place. So saying that she has no right to say that is just completely false, as she has all the right to say that.
She didn't have to put effort into being as popular as she is, and
and once again, the effort came beforehand. And it's not like saying that she isn't putting that effort, as she's gonna say in a moment anyway.
To say that she doesn't put effort in, she absolutely does. But the effort that she got to put in is in a different way, right? I don't think that it needs to be a controversy. I don't care. Because ultimately, Maury isn't.
Well, the thing was, she wasn't. She was an indie before she was in Hololive.
No. I understand. What I mean is Maury isn't a person that gets to make sweeping statements about the VTuber community and them come down as law or something like that. If you're upset about it, then who cares?
I mean, you got upset. You got quite upset that 2 years later you're still kind of upset about it. And considering that you stopped doing pretty much most anything on your own personal account, I think that says something about your will and attitude to create content.
She's not going to harm you. Her saying that isn't harming anyone. it's just personal offense. If you're taking offense to it, then maybe that's because you see your spending time on Twitter as not content, and therefore you're being attacked by it or whatever.
I mean, she's pretty much the same. She got offended by that statement, even though she's trying to brush it off. And the evidence of that offense is better seen in the future, as I've demonstrated a few minutes ago.
In which case, I would say to that, then work on something different. Like, absolutely, I'm not saying that she doesn't put in effort, and I'm not saying that, like, she couldn't have been successful or anything like that. I just think that, like, it is a little bit ignoring the fact that, like, most people don't get to have 500,000 followers on Twitter overnight. Like, people, like, for me, Twitter is work. It is networking. It is putting in work to put myself out there, and it is a way of increasing my outreach.
We'll see how effective her outreach is once this interview is done, because there's a particular thing that says quite a bit about how effective her networking, quote unquote, was throughout the years.
For every single follower that I get, Twitter is part of my job as a VTuber. So making the statement like, oh, you're not making content by just being on Twitter or whatever, she's wrong.
It depends what kind of content you make. If you're just tweeting, if you're just making statements, you're basically just a VTweeter. You're like any other Twitter user. You don't need to be a VTuber at that point. You're just a Twitter user like any other person. You're nothing special at that point, and that's the fact of the matter. Well, here's Momoka's own Twitter account, started in 2012. As you can see, over 4.6k followers on it, which one might say is a decent accomplishment, though, you know, in that time one would expect different levels of success, but everyone's different, and Twitter in the long run doesn't matter too much to your VTubing if you don't use it too much in order to advertise yourself. And let's see how she actually advertises herself. Well, the first problem that you notice is that she has a pinned tweet with her tags and her character reference, but the second tweet only links to her two socials, and it's kind of hidden, all in all. So unless you be clicking that particular thread, you won't even know where she has that content of hers. The other problem with that is that Momoka, you see, has different types of content beyond these two platforms, which is Twitch and TikTok. She also has a YouTube channel, now a defunct one since she's not really using it anymore for personal projects. And it's not linked anywhere. I had to look for it on YouTube, on Google itself. And that kind of says how effective your marketing is. Like, you don't really put effort into anything. And considering how much you stress the importance of creating content on Twitter, this kind of is a bit hypocritical, and kind of doesn't line up with what you were saying before. Her own personal Twitch, which she only used last time 2 years ago, and since then there has been no activity on it. The TikTok, which also is defunct, which with the last of her activity in 2021. Her YouTube channel with 47 subscribers and barely any views on any particular video on it, also not being used for anything, with the last video uploaded a year ago. The most active she is actually on a podcast that she has with other VTubers, in particular 3 other VTubers. which on its own also doesn't get much viewership. But you know, if you're satisfied with that, you're satisfied with that. The problem is that in order for me to actually find the podcast that she's a part of, I had to scroll through several months of, well, maybe weeks, not months, but I had to scroll very far down her Twitter account in order to actually find any sort of link to this podcast. So as far as being effective on Twitter, I'd give this like an F, maybe an F plus, because you do have attention, but from people that are extremely hateful, and you yourself also have proven to be that. So, you know, in my mind, not only have you proven that Kali was right in her song about you and people similar to you, you also proved people wrong by going after her like a mad VTweeter, trying to accuse her of heinous things, using pure assumptions about her intentions. So, you know, if this is success for you, then congratulations, you are successful. But most people will probably not deem that successful in any sort of way. I'll leave you with these words. If you can't succeed, succeed in failure. Did Momoka do that? I'll leave that up to you. But for now, that's everything. I'll see you in the next one.